Number one, the minutes from last week. Do we have those? And I didn't know if we.
The minutes should have been sent out, I believe, right after the last, after
I
the
think
last.
we did.
meeting.
So if anybody saw them or would like to move anything, would you like to make a?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from last month with 2 caveats. I have no problem being called Jess Blasco throughout the document, but maybe somewhere it says my full name, Jessica, just the start or something, so that's identified. And then in the comments I made about the skip the stuff, from the city perspective that I kind of talked about in relation to the cap and things, I just wanted to ask that we add a sentence, because one of the things that I had said was that, skip the stuff is specifically mentioned in the draft cap as a strategy, and I think that's important to be reflected in the minutes of last month, but that is something that is being, created or encouraged around the cap.
Great, so. I can't tell you how happy I am that you can read things and retain what you want to say. I love it. We're gonna talk about different things you bring to a committee. So, did somebody second it? I didn't hear.
Second.
Bill seconds it. All those in favor, wave your hand.
Aye.
Okay, are those opposed? Okay, we got it accepted. All right. So then if, after the exercise, we can, brief update on plastics, gold. Other updates might be from the community engagement, places to live, and the clothes. Anything else anybody wants to put? All right. So. Talking to my daughter, who is retired from a very busy life when you're talking. And I think she was talking about, so see, I don't even remember where I hear it, but what was important was we pay a lot of attention to our physical body, to our mental state, and what really makes a quality of life is relationships. And I think on a committee, in Congress, any place we are, if the relationships are good, it makes life a heck of a lot more functional and a lot better. And so I've kind of done that from the first grade right through graduate courses at UNH, was to build community. And the interesting thing for me personally is that community doesn't just happen. It's actually like relationships. There's a lot of skills that are involved. So I'm going to do a little bit of an exercise with you. If you're willing, it's always can pass, but it will only take around 5 to 10 minutes to do the exercise. Then we'll share it with each other, with the end result that we'll know each other a little better. And then from where we know each other a little better, I would like to just acknowledge that I read, Lee, your summary of what the committee was. I read that again. And Effie, I downloaded and printed out all those statements, and I got through half of them. I'm a slow reader, 81. And there was one other one that Herb that had the whole process for how to get to a goals and setting. So that made me think with your statement and what a gift it was of yours came the question, what is the difference between Portsmouth Climate Action and this committee? And I think that's part of what's stirring me for this exercise, because I think we need a dialogue about that. It's not clear. So thank you for that. Thank you. And thank you. And for giving me many hours of sleepless nights. I'm not kidding. I actually, but it is something that I take quite, as a ground of what we need to do now as a standing committee. So, because Kim was kind enough to, bring these up, would you pass them around that way? Everybody take one, and, if you need something to write, if you don't have something to write, let me know. We'll pass these around. Were there any extras, or did you get them all? The universe is really working well on that. All right, so, there's gonna be no right answer to this, but it's gonna be, the 3 Ws. I use this on the course that I was teaching teachers in Israel. And, one teacher put this in her slide presentation, I thought, wow, must have registered for her. And, it actually is attributed to Theodore Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt. And he said he got it from somebody else. But I've used it almost weekly when I say this to myself. What do it? It's about doing, it's what you're talking about. How much can you do in a day? And so Teddy Roosevelt said, do what you can with what you have where you are. And it's just very 3 simple things, but it starts to get some reflection going. So I'm gonna lead you through the opposite from the top. I'm gonna go from the bottom, and I'm gonna ask you a question for about a minute or 2. Write down where you are in your life. I'm retired. I'm putting a lot of time into sustainability. Where are you in your life? Just put down some phrases that would identify where you're at in your life. And I'm gonna do it again because I think it will change. What comes up for you? Where are you? Think about another 10 seconds. And working from the bottom up. The next question is, do with what you have. Basically, I'm interpreting this as, what are the assets that you bring to the table? Because we're all at different places in our life, and each of us brings a set of assets. So in a way, it's what do you as a person bring to this committee? What do you to anything? So just jot down, what are the things that you bring? What do you, whatever, outright, about another 2, 3 years. Just take a few seconds to finish up whatever you're writing. And now go to the top question. Do what you can. What is it that you can do? What is it that you can do? Whatever comes to mind. And we're talking mainly here about sustainability, but what is it that you can do? Okay, if you could finish that up. And I want everybody to stand up with your paper. Come over here to this space, right over here. And I want you to start walking around. In this little space, to start walking around. There, just- Walking around the field. And you want to smile, that's really good. Okay. Stop, and now, wherever you are, get a partner, not me because it's wrong. Get a partner who you know the least, and if you don't have a partner, come and see me. Okay, go stand next to the partner. You guys have a partner. No. I would say. I would say it's now 7:04. You have 6 minutes. You can go sit any place you want, you can stand here. Be back here at exactly 7:10. And you start to wait a minute. Find out which of you got up early this morning. Find between the two, talk to each other. You got up early. Between the two. You just talk to your partner. You got
And then,
Which is how champions made it.
Exactly.
Where in there, business owner. Trying to live in these town that years. The whole purpose of the company is for people to excite us.
Will you stay with your partner? And when you, come back, sit next to your partner for the next, and there's gonna be another little part, another 5 or 10 minutes. So stay with your partner and just find around the table a place to sit with your partner.
Where are you staying? I don't know. It seems like Effie and I want to either grade or maybe.
Chair here.
I think-
Do we need our just
Need your pants, but I'll give you one if you want.
You can take that.
Okay, great. No, might sit there too.
You depend on the chat, everybody.
Okay. That's fine.
All right. So we did this on a personal level. What I would like us to do is consider if we were to do this on a committee, what can the committee do? And I'm looking for my multiple, I got it. And what can the committee do? So where you are. And so if I said rather than where you are, where are we as a committee? And this is just my perception. This is what I'm in a way, where we are is not dysfunctional like that thing. We're not individual citizens. And I remember when I taught at Little Harvard, as a teacher, I was just one person. City Hall, that's part. I mean, I had no clue what people did down here. So I was an individual citizen. I voted and I did all that kind of stuff. And up here is the council. And the manager. Now, both these entities, this has money, the council, a budget, they can enact laws, and that's what they have as their assets. They can do that. Here's our committee. We can't make laws. We can support. And we can't, we don't have a budget. So what is it that we can do? Now, I'm gonna ask you for 1 minute to write on the back of your paper, and then I'm gonna have you actually do something else. On the back of your paper, part of what anybody can do is what they really feel strongly about. If you don't have passion for something, it's not going to last. But right now, where you are in your life, with the assets that you have, and now being part of this committee, write 2 or 3 things that you would like to see the committee do. That's what you were saying. We want to do things. What is it that the committee can do? What is it that if you could have one thing that you would want the committee to do? If it comes to mind, if nothing does, I'm going to give you 2 minutes, whatever comes to mind, what would you like the committee to do? try that too, and start my stopwatch.
within the ordinance.
Well, with, given where we are, we don't have a budget.
But we do have an ordinance
Yeah. we
that
got
gives
all-
us
yeah, that-
guardrails.
Yeah, we have guardrails, and we're not just a blue ribbon committee law, we're a standing committee, so we have more power. And I'm trying to figure out what that is, and this is part of that process for me. And the next part of the exercise will be a little bit, I think, we're lost. Okay. Finish up in about 30 seconds, and we'll go to the last part of the exercise. Okay. Uh, this part of the exercise, and I've never done this before, but I hope it will be useful. When I read what Lee had taken notes on as what the mandate of the committee was, I said to my wife, and I think I said to Kate, great notes. And if we were a committee of 10 people working 40 hours a week, we could maybe meet some of these things. But that's what we're all trying to do. What is the really essence of what we can do with what we can have, where we are? I mean, we're not a committee full-time. We're volunteers. So what I would like you to do is the person who started talking before, they're the first person. I put it in front of you, just turn it over, read the one and the two alternate, read. And as you do, talk with each other and do any of these mandates line up with the things that you want to do. Because then we might see that there's some alignment with what I want to do. Is that clear enough?
Is this within the ordinance? So have you checked, like, can we do these things?
No, but we can't, we'll find out. No, I haven't.
Because the ordinance is pretty clear.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah,
And I will state that I actually had AI create this. I didn't do any of this
Okay.
work. And to be honest, this was an example, right? I actually asked ChatGPT to give me an example of what we might want to actually include in order to inform community as
Yeah.
to what this committee actually does and what we would want to do. So I asked it a question, it gave me an answer. Yeah, I'm a lazy engineer.
so,
I just wanted to say, is Max on Zoom?
Max, are you here? Max, you're on mute if you are. No, I guess,
Yeah, okay.
and, Herb, if you know of stuff in there that already is not in, or I would have even,
we can just look at, here's the ordinance, and we can just look to see.
well, maybe you could do that for us. Would you and
Jillian.
Jillian, will you go through that and see what might be contradicted or what might be reinforced? And you can give us a report, back, would you?
Sure.
That'd be great. All right, everybody else go for it.
Yes. We spent about a year. No, there it is. So we can, as a committee, we can advise guidance, and that's it. That's all we do. According to the ordinance. And so, we look at this here, is like environmental advocacy and recommendations. So
Recommendations might be a little bit advice, but.
that's advice and guidance, so.
So yes.
Advises the mayor, so I would say probably yes.
Yeah.
probably.
If I may, I can't take it.
Yeah, go for it. And then community engagement and outreach, that is not within the ordinance.
Is the ordinance like? Walls of what we can and can't.
Yeah,
Like 100%.
it's basically the law.
Okay.
And that's the equivalent. It says this is what the committee, see, it says, powers and duties of our committee. And, you know, if we step outside of what our powers and duties. You know, if the mayor's okay with that, if city council's okay with that, the city manager's okay with that. It gives us, you know, they okay to do that. But, you know, basically, this is saying, this is what we can accept there.
Do you feel as though this number 3 standing for environment is not impacting our ecosystem? We have no sort of like little bit in here, like.
As long as we are providing advice and guidance
That's
in relationship to standing for environmental justice and protecting ecosystems. So that's, you know, that's the key right there. Projects and issues. Is that advice and guidance, that's as far as we can go. So a community engagement outreach, actively engages citizens in understanding sustainability. So we'll say it has something like that. Because we provide advice and guidance to the city council, city manager, and city boards. We do not provide community engagement outreach to the community. That's what we do.
Resource for me to.
So who would want to do next on that? Yeah. Resource for municipal departments. We are not resource for municipal departments. We provide advice and guidance to the city council, the city manager, and the city boards. Not the city departments.
So then it goes. The wording is. Go over you. No like here. Recommendations to the mayor.
I would say no. We do not support any projects or initiatives outside, providing, if it's advice and guidance.
I think that some part of it is like, I think some part of this is underneath this, but not, so like.
Maybe like one.
Hash. Should I do it
Yeah,
one
one
hash?
hash. I keep it out. Yeah, one hash, yeah. Setting goals and annual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this one's definitely, so, yeah,
Is there any more on the back?
Yes.
Or is that?
in summary.
That's number
Bridge,
five.
yeah. Yeah.
Or actually, that's not number 5, that's just another, like Chat GPT added
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
So,
Chat GPT is amazing. I don't know, do you ever use that or Gemini?
I've used it, But in school, they're very, very against it for like, so I basically like don't use it on my school computer because I don't use it on the computer, but on my personal computer, I use it for like, create a recipe using these ingredients.
Yeah.
Like just for fun, but I've never used it for something like this, but it's actually super interesting on how topical, like, a point I'm hitting
Yeah,
that are important to us.
yeah.
Have you used it?
Oh, yeah, I use it all the time.
Or just-
We're not supposed to use it, we do not have access to anything like that, to ChatGPT or Gemini.
Well, seconds that will come back.
Yeah.
But we do use a ton of AI. for Better affairs. But I don't work stuff. I just turn to my personal
Yeah.
computer and I read things and research on stuff. And it's some stuff comes back, not so great.
Yeah.
Some stuff comes back. That's just stuff that makes sense.
One of my goals is to make sure training for active, and he like is super diet, exercise, like. Super, yeah.
Yeah, I asked ChatGPT on a nice committee meeting that we had to give me a plan for creating a neighborhood food program. And it just spit out. This is how you do it.
You can vote for there.
This is really good.
Thank you for trying that out. And what I think is gonna be interesting for me anyway, is I'm gonna pass the talking stick around. And when it comes to you, will you just share one thing that came to mind from your conversation? Just whatever, so we get a flavor. And then, when we get to Jillian and her, Fred. Now, her, Fred, I had it right.
You got it.
You call spread for.
I feel bad for him.
So anyway, when we get to them, I think we're gonna have an interesting discussion from what, this document came up kind of as an idea and what the mandate is. And I think where are we as a committee? So I think that will help clarify it as a discussion. So I'm going to just pass it around, and if you don't have anything to say, you can always pass. But what came out of this exercise for you? One thing.
Thanks. Something that Bill and I immediately noticed after reading the first two was how accurate it already is to what we do and sort of the climate action plan. How we're already checking a lot of these boxes or starting to.
Yeah, it seemed like ChatGPT is onto something on this, and then really the first three, as Kate said, seemed like it fits really well, and the others, like the fourth and the fifth, or even some of the others are things that the committee can do by partnering with, let's say, grassroots groups like Portsmouth Climate Action.
I thought there were a lot of things that said that were in line with what the committee can do and should do. It seemed like it was really focused on what the city should do and what the city government should do. It doesn't do as much. It does some on the community outreach. I think that there could be a little more on the committees supporting the council and supporting community outreach.
I agree. I think that the community aspect of like bridging the gap between the community and the city council would be most important, I think.
So I think the first thing that came to mind from doing this exercise in the first place was eagerness, number one. I will say learning about Jessica, and that was exciting. So excitement, there's another aspect to it. I think that I'll say the same thing that Jessica said to me, which is I haven't read this in a while. Thank you, AI, for creating that for me, but at the same time, what I wrote down was actually recommend and advise, right? As in terms of the major role that I think we ought to be playing is finding those top 3 or top 5 things that are important for us to consider as a community. And then being able to support that from the aspect of what would we recommend to city council and city managers? I agree, there's an outreach aspect to it as well. But I think, again, it starts locally and then thinks globally, so that was my thought anyway.
I would say I learned that Lee has a very big heart. And then in relation to this document, Lee and I were very much on the same page in that we saw our role as an advisory role. And one of the things that I shared with him is, the benefit of being on Conservation Commission the last several years is I've seen this really interesting shift in that anytime a project comes before us, whether it's a city project or a private project, we sort of have, we have set criteria that they have to answer, but we also have this unofficial list of questions that we tend to ask all the applicants about their planting plan and what are they gonna do for native species and managing invasives and lighting and snow removal and stormwater management. And what I've seen over time is some of the engineers and firms that we work with more regularly now anticipate those questions. And so they already come to us with those questions answered as part of their application and their project. And I think I could see that as a major role for this committee, if we keep asking those sustainability questions in regard to private projects that are coming forward or municipal projects. Have you thought about this sustainability perspective? Have you thought about this piece? Especially since we have such a vast knowledge in this committee, that can be a really powerful role we can play. Yes, as we said, teaching the fish instead of fishing for it.
Community engagement is something that I've thought about personally a lot before even reading this, and then something that came up a lot in conversation. But like kind of Emma said, bridging the gap between just the community and then the council and us. And I think going back to some of my high school meetings, or even just talking with like my friends' parents, or just anyone that I see on the street, a lot of people don't understand a lot. And I have to come back and explain in a lot simpler terms. And I think for a lot of people, things like this aren't as easy to come to, and they just don't have as much knowledge. And I think we really need to work on kind of bringing all the amazing work that everyone's doing here and the knowledge that we have, and being able to kind of share that with people who maybe don't have the time or just are too scared to come in, because I know that's a lot that comes with youth as well. So.
Thank you. This is Abby, and she's about to go off to Northeastern and study environmental engineering, which is awesome. And what was really amazing to me is that although we're at very different phases of life, the perspectives that we had that came back to this were actually really, really similar. And so it's fun to learn from different people and different perspectives, and then see where they start to converge. And so so the key takeaway, at least from this, is like much that you get from any type of generative AI gets you about 80% of the way there, and then you need to filter it and prioritize it. So we were aligned on what was high priorities, medium, low priorities, or primary and secondary, tertiary. And so even though very different phases, different educations, we had similar ideas that narrowed it here and similar priorities. So I like how it converged.
Well, we found out Kristen and I are both beekeepers. I no longer have beehives, but she does.
Will again.
Will again, that's right. I had the same reaction as her when I saw the Chat GPT list. Well, what about the ordinance? Because I've been really studying that, and my copy's all highlighted, I have notes on it. But then I saw that there was so much in common between what Chat came up with and the ordinance that Katie and Josh and all of us developed. One thing I liked that Chat made explicit, and it doesn't make sense necessarily to have it in the ordinance, is that the committee establishes short and long-term goals. I think that would really benefit this group.
No.
Take it away.
Yes, and what I thought was most interesting in our chat was that, kind of dovetailing with what you said, we have different backgrounds and did really similar things.
Yeah.
And that's what's great about this group. You are a hard group to follow, how you have to speak too, just so everybody knows.
for me coming in here, I'm not a committee member. I'm here from the health department, so we have a health and all policies. Policy at the city, and I'm here to see how I can fit public and environmental health into it, hit us into any of the activities that the group is looking to do, how we can either support it. Assist developing things, any of those things, so, what I came in thinking, when I'm sitting here thinking is that's that I thought one of the bigger roles of this committee was to sort of sort the citizen priorities. There are so many irons in the fire with sustainability and figuring out what is, as Lee was saying, what can we do? What are the ones we really can make the most difference with, and sort those out for the citizens so we can make that push to educate the people and get more people on board and make some of those changes. So that was what I got.
So did you say you want us to pivot now into?
Yeah, I think you had a good point, and I think it'd be good to discuss what you're
Okay.
thinking about.
Yeah, so and Effie, you're probably the same as me, because you printed this out to look at, just to double check that what my understanding was. So our powers and duties under the ordinance, and many of us worked on this for a long time to come up with this. But our powers and duties are to advise and guide the city council, the city manager, and the city boards. And so that's it. That's what we came up with. Looking through here, and I love Chat GPT. I use it. I was probably not a day goes by that I don't use it. I know Chad's using it a lot. And so number one, environmental advocacy and recommendations. So we thought that was aligned well with the ordinance. Community outreach, community engagement and outreach. So actively engaging with citizens. I don't think it's in the ordinance. Right? I mean,
Look at number 2.
yeah, and that's great. So advise and guide to the city council, manager, and city boards in relationship to number 2, increasing awareness of sustainability practices among residents. So that work that we do, advising and guiding, is not with the public. We're not advising and guiding the public. We are advising and guiding city council, city manager, and city boards. Does that make sense?
But we can take inputs from wherever we want. We can read things, we can talk to the public.
Oh, sure, as we're providing advice and guidance to those that are listed on here, absolutely.
It's like outputs and inputs.
But we're not, so I guess what is community engagement and outreach? I see outreaches,
It could be community engagement as inputs to help.
yeah, community engagement, so. And then the second one, resource for multiple municipal departments. I don't see that in the ordinance. We didn't write that in there. So, supporting projects and initiatives, we put half of that. We said about half of that probably because, for projects and initiatives, we could advise and guide the city council, the city manager, and the city boards on the projects and initiatives. And then the last one, setting goals and annual recommendations. Yeah, that 100%, absolutely.
So the question that arises, I think about community engagement, is we're looking for leverage. That's what I think. We're involved in systems thinking. We're not siloed. We want to get the biggest bang for our buck over the whole system. And any place you push one part of the system, you're changing the whole system. So one of the things that we have a unique place in my mind is we are being asked to give counsel to the city council and the manager, and that's a big leverage. Now, is that our expertise and strength? A couple of things that and this is open for dialogue. I don't have any fixed idea. I just wanted us to start talking about this, if it's okay. What I'm thinking is there are things that emerge that kind of come up. Like, I was thinking, I'm just gonna say, when we talk about departments. Many years ago, Peter, when we were introducing us as an eco-municipality with four systems condition. If I'm correct, you were meeting regularly with the department heads and asking what was going on with those. Is that a relatively
Not that regular, but yeah, we did meet several times.
Several.
For what each municipality meant and how departments could basically do a bottoms up approach to sustainability. So we kind of integrated the municipality approach into the different departments.
So that's the way that the natural step, which was brought in by this committee pretty much, went out to the city. Now, if I understand it, you are starting a new, would you explain what you're
Yeah,
thinking about?
once the climate action plan is adopted or completed, we're gonna start meeting with departments on a regular basis. Each department will have a liaison and just basically brainstorming or talking about what they're working on, trying to encourage and track, mainly track and see where we can, address things in the climate action plan, specifically the municipality or the community, but really through that department lens. To just try to keep the conversation going is really the big thing.
So why I think we're important, if we know that, and one of our mandates, we paid $80,000 to get the climate action plan. If with our expertise, we get one of those and say, this is prime for our city, because we're a coastal area, this is a prime one. They might come to it themselves, but we could say, Peter, when you're meeting with them, could one of us, or could you bring up this particular part of the climate action plan? That's where I see us synergizing our energies.
And I just add that it might not be specifically focused on departments, but the city manager oversees all the departments. So if it's something that goes to the city manager, that's where she's gonna take it. Maybe through the council or maybe directly, because she's in charge of all the departments. So it's not like you don't have that connection. I think it's more trying to follow that sort of
So
structure.
it's not explicit in the ordinance, you're saying, but where it says city manager, that means.
If you send it to the city manager, she's not gonna do it herself, she's gonna take it to the department and do it. So it kind of goes through that chain.
So that really clarifies the leverage point that a citizen doesn't have. When we make that recommendation, we have a channel open to us that really is effective, and that's what I think we're trying to clarify. Anybody else have any thoughts on this? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the CAP provides a kind of a perfect template for other things that could come up, because there are other things besides the CAP that are relevant to this committee and relevant to sustainability, but in deciding what the priorities for the year are, that's the opportunity to say, well, is it the Market Square redesign? Is it the master plan? Is it housing, or is it any of other things that are coming along? And or we don't want to spread ourselves too thin, but I mean, the CAP gives an awful lot to focus on for the next year. It cuts across all the sectors.
And I just want to add the community outreach piece that's there. Similarly, like going to the manager for the staff, city council, it might be that city council supports a community outreach effort, but it wouldn't be something that you just directly can do as a committee. But I think, with the CAP saying to do this, and it's a community outreach activity, maybe you say to the council, this is what I'm doing, that kind of thing. You precluded it.
I think that'd be helpful, at least from my understanding is actually inputs and outputs. I think that's a really good topic. Are we taking input from all of the citizens? And then providing our output is recommendations to the city manager, to the council. And are we saying that there's a boundary that when there's citizens that have some sort of initiative that they're driving forward, are we saying that's actually outside of what this group is doing?
And can I just add on to that, because I know it's not specifically in the ordinance, but I spent some time looking at our webpage. And the committee's work focuses on three main areas, and the first one says increasing awareness of the importance and value of sustainable practices among Portsmouth residents, business owners, non-resident employees of Portsmouth businesses, visitors to the city, municipal staff, and other stakeholders. So it's not in the ordinance, but it's listed as our first focus on the website page.
I think it is in the ordinance.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
And my personal feeling, I'm sorry, I'll let you finish.
No, I just, like, you know, I feel like it does. And we have a lot of residents who come in and want to get our guidance on things, so
Yeah,
I just worry if we pigeonhole that we only support the city, that we're gonna lose a piece of.
so what I was gonna say is, I feel like the web page, I'm not sure why the committee was directed to look at that, because I feel like our web page is kind of old. And the 6 areas of focus or whatever, we added water, and then to me, that it's not very relevant to the committee, no, I mean, it's just out of date. So I'd rather go to the ordinance and work from there, and we're talking about rewriting. But I do think the community engagement piece is big, and it's just that, you know, by focusing on provide advice and guidance to city council, city managers, and boards, that we didn't go farther and look at about implementing the CAP, the renewable energy policy, increasing awareness among all the people that you just listed, and then standing for environmental justice while protecting our ecosystem. And it's not that we can advise those parties to do all those things. I mean, we're gonna have to say, well, this is how you would go about that. You know, this is what has to happen next. So I think that part fits, but I'm sorry, I'm sensitive about the webpage because I just.
I don't know, I want to see ways to add it to that top priorities. Yeah, so.
And it should and could, because it's in the cap,
Right.
Right,
right?
yeah,
And that's the thing, is when you take this ordinance and you take the document that Kate sent out about the cap. Holy cow, I think you cover like almost everything, like, there's a lifetime worth of work.
Yeah.
For us to tackle. But I mean, I think with those two documents, you put those two together and there it's like. Then we just go through and do, you know, we have to pick out, but you can do prioritization.
Right.
To say, because each one of the, you know, I went through that document that you sent out again today, and I was like, holy cow. I mean, you take, you know, for us advising and guiding on all those different items that are gonna be in the cap. I mean, it is like, it's a bottomless pit. There's so much that we could do, and then, of course, we just have to decide, like in 2024. What's number one, what's number two?
Yeah, so we'll stack, yes, and then we'll.
I don't mean to keep coming back to conservation commission, but that's my other experience with the city committee or commission. And one of the things that we do for all applications, there are 6 questions that the applicant has to answer. So maybe that's something that we need to develop as a committee, is these are our 6 kind of guiding questions. If it, you know, if it answers 4 of the 6 or whatever we decide, then it's something that we pursue. And but if it only answers 2, then maybe it's a subcommittee or an individual if they're interested, but collectively it's not something that we.
I think that's a great idea, because those 6 questions could help us prioritize too.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great.
Actually, I was going to make a very similar point to Jess's, and I think one of the challenges with the sustainability topic is if you're not pretty clear what you're talking about, it ends up being everything. It ends up being all things to all people. It gets very squishy, it gets very mushy, and we end up being a lot of individuals with individual ideas and favorite projects, which I think the real strength of the committee is offering a sustainability perspective. But I think to be able to do that, would be very helpful to have similar sorts of questions or perspectives, because then we can offer something that's fresh and useful and crisp. So it's not just 15 smart and interested people with a bunch of ideas. The Conservation Commission may have an easier time of that, defining what conservation is. Sustainability, not so much, but yet I think all of us think a lot about sustainability. I think for me, it always comes back to the three E's of environment, equity, and economy, and thinking about them all together, all at once, trading them off, balancing them, quantifying it. And I think that's, if we can do that and offer that perspective, whether it's on choosing which of the CAP strategies are most important to go forward, then I think we've got something to offer, but I think we need to be pretty specific to avoid being pretty mushy.
I'd like to ask the group, we had someone come to the committee and talk about wood mulch. It was a while ago, so I'm not sure everybody here heard the gentleman who spoke about that. And then a woman who came to this city to talk about lighting and dark cities, dark skies. And I think, Jess, what you were saying is great, because I don't know, and this isn't to criticize the individuals, but I don't know that they looked to find out what had been done and what's possible. You know, they just came in with their cause, which was reasonable, and then whether it fits sustainability or not. So I think having a grid like that would be good, but I'd like to hear what other people think. You know, should we be open just to have people coming to the committee?
Two things, Kaz, are you taking notes so that you're capturing this? Oh, yeah. Thank you.
He's doing the 20% that AI won't do.
You're gonna say,
I actually just to take the recording and put it through AI. 2 hours.
Transcription, there you go.
yeah, and so you'll be facilitating next week.
Game of Thrones book back.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that, in fact, it's delighting me that what you said, Jess, you sent out those questions, I happened to look at them. That if I think leverage, if with this committee develop those questions, that would be an incredible leverage point, because we're then doing what Jess was saying about the builders who now know what the questions are. The Portsmouth Climate Action, when 400 was doing the celebration and we had concerns about the event, I think, Effie, what was it, Peg? How many items did you have? There was been 21 items, but that item then was for every event that they had. So a few events might have been actually affected. That was the leverage. So I just like the idea, and what's emerged is always, is there somebody who would take joy and have the capacity or want to do a stab at putting some of those questions together that they could bring back for next time? I'm not a particularly good writer, I would volunteer, but I'm just wondering if that's appropriate at this time. Listen.
Clarify question, which questions?
There are not specific ones.
Oh,
I think that's what Bert is
Okay,
suggesting.
okay,
Somebody
I'm saying
might
there's a list of questions.
know
Okay.
what would be our guiding question.
Okay.
But there's a model from the Conservation Commission.
Yeah, Conservation Commission, I think what you're referring to is 6 criteria for approval, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there's
and they want
sort
to
of,
approve the permit.
right, it's pretty specific to Conservation Commission, it's not so broad, but I think it does. You know, like the first one is the land is reasonably suited to the use, activity or alteration, so maybe there's a way like. To shift that a little bit, this project is a reasonable use of our resources and, or something like that, you know, like I feel like they're. Maybe not all of them, but I, you know, I think it can just, for me, it just helps me start to think like. What are our guiding principles? When we're
I want to throw the ball to Bill, because sometimes I've heard from him and I said, wow.
Yeah.
From my end, I'm gonna set him up and I might be off, but when I heard Bill talking, that the federal government at this point, for all committees in the government, and he happens to be in the mobility one, but in all committees, they have two criteria. Does it meet social justice, and does it meet sustainability criteria? So when Bill's working on a project, as I understood it, the project would have to include those two things and would get higher priority if it did than if it didn't. Now, I'm thinking similarly, if we had some questions that's what Jess was bringing to my mind, if we had questions relating to, and I'm gonna just stop here after the capital improvement plan. We were thinking of putting questions at the top of that. So our sustainability committee could say, if you're submitting something to get money from the city, there's a whole line of question, but are the top two, how does this relate to social equity? And how does it relate to the 3H letter? So that's where I was going.
Yeah, I think the questions would be very useful in getting away from a squishier approach to sustainability. But I think they'd have to be very reasonable, and practical. So if no one else volunteers, I'd be willing to take a first cut at it, but I don't know if it would be then useful to circulate it by email before the meeting.
Well, only people to read, not to respond. We don't want to create a quorum. We
Yeah.
gotta be careful. that
Oh.
we don't- We're
Just
committee
to,
now.
just
so
to read, to be ready to
You can
discuss.
be ready to discuss, you could make your own edits and bring it to the meeting, but please don't send your edits out to everyone, don't CC all, reply all.
Okay,
But it's okay to send out that one, and
Right.
say, well, I'm gonna bring this to the meeting, and then at the meeting you can talk about
or
it.
send
Have
it
that.
Kate to distribute.
Send it to
Talking
Kate.
about a document to use to screen people in or out to come to the meeting and present something? Is that what we're talking
No.
about?
No.
Or are we talking about our work?
We're talking about our work.
If
Well,
we're,
it kind of strikes me, we're coming at it from a funny angle. Is it to help us set priorities and goals for the year? Is that the idea?
no, I think it's, if we're adding a sustainability overlay to things where it's relevant, it's maybe not relevant to everything. But to some things like capital projects in the master plan,
Okay.
if
Well,
the climate change is a priority, then one question would be, does this advance topics that are in the cap?
Yeah.
Does it balance, does it include social equity? Does it balance economic interests and environmental interests? Just sort of filtering questions that would be not necessarily applied as specifically to investment projects like the Conservation Commission is, because I think this is sort of broader and vaguer, but it's
Is it-
like, what is the overlay that this committee
Is
can
it
offer?
kind of a values statement?
A screen, like a screening and an overlay to things as relevant, like. I think maybe next week I was gonna talk about the places to live, or the next meeting, places to live meeting. I mean, you could apply that kind of sustainability filter, and I think a lot of groups just sort of did that anyway, but it's a way of maybe sharpening it.
I'd just like to clarify it a little bit. To get it down to something specific. I think right now, the city is doing a redesign of Market Square. And I'm sure that people on the committee are very knowledgeable and are looking at many criteria. Are there any formal social justice or equity or sustainability criteria involved with the planning? And would it criteria of some high level questionings, would that be at all useful? I don't know.
Well, but they're not there yet, we haven't got to that point where it's any specific mandate or plan. But that's the idea, is to come up with a plan. I think that would be a good thing to include. I mean, in terms of getting at your question, how do you include sustainability and equity in the planning phase of Market Square? Would be the way to.
And the earlier that it's done, the more there's a chance for it to have some
Yeah.
impact.
See, that's where I'm thinking about leverage, real things that are going on in the city. And I'll just tell you one that I didn't understand this at all until Bill said he was working in a country in Africa and there was 2 roads. And say you had 25 or 125 million to spend. So you take the road here or there. And as I understood it, this road over here would get the industrial products to the market in a more efficient way. And this road over here would get access to farmers who were working on a sustainability basis to get a cash crop because they didn't have a road. And so by using the social equity measure for the same money, you are now able to get a cash crop in, and you see where I'm going? That impressed me. Did I have that at all right?
Remarkably, it would actually have a sustainability criteria that would have to be applied, and that would be broken down into things like economic survival for subsistence farmers and land ownership for women and access to jobs, particularly for women, and to healthcare for impoverished families. But very consciously, it includes a climate criterion and a equity fairness criterion, along with very strong economic assessment, economic returns on investment. But that's built right in, and that's US government project, and that's international, but it's also applied in the US.
Well, I was thinking in Market Square project, when you're talking about who is the audience that's going to have access to it, and what part of our communities, and what's the mobility, and where are the co-benefits of setting up electric, and we want to make it visible. So maybe we could recommend that part of the Market Square project is a visible demonstration of a mobile electric, well, you see, so that's why and so if what Bill was offering, I wasn't quite clear, Peter, on what you're saying. Say he works out 2 or 3 questions that we could put as a social equity and economic and a sustainability thing. If he puts a document and we have a mailing list for the committee, can you send that document out, or were you saying?
He can send it out, we just can't reply out. So he can send it, he should send it to Kate, and she'll send it to the committee and probably just BCC everybody so that it's not easy to reply all. But there could be instructions in there, like, take a look at this document, bring your thoughts to the next meeting, or come up with your own version and bring it to the next meeting, or, you know, that kind of thing. But don't have that communication by email, because you're creating a quorum online, and the quorum has to take place in a public meeting.
All right, so I want that sent, Bill sends it to Kate, Kate sends it out and said, hey, gang, here's Bill's draft. Bring your thoughts.
You'd be ready to discuss it otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the next meeting.
You're having too much fun. You guys shouldn't have been put together. I'm gonna split, I'm first grade, I'm gonna split you see that. All right, where I think where we're at is, I think at a pretty good place to maybe go on to other stuff, unless, I would just like to say, in community outreach. I think let's put that on the topic again, so we can really clarify Portsmouth climate action. And I wanted to show you this. The city, because of this committee, we actually consulted to the city manager when she was new. And we introduced her to draw down on the basis that we were an eco-municipality. So we already had the 4 conditions. We defined sustainability. And we already have it in our building code that for all future projects, we're gonna use the 4 systems conditions. What we didn't have was solutions. That was high level. So the city manager said, that's great. I'm gonna buy one of these for each of the council members. And I'll have the city support doing a workshop. We had 91 people sign up for the workshop. It's the most I've ever seen for a sustainability workshop. And I think out of some of you, I might have shared, 44 people showed up for the introduction. 22 people took the 8-week course. And now 118 weeks later, we built community out of that common basis. And that's what Portsmouth Climate Action is. And in some ways, I think you got me thinking, Herb, about Portsmouth Climate Action is much more mobile and flexible because it doesn't have a governmental status. So we can sponsor projects, we can invite guests, and we're very fluid each week. And we have great dialogues, and most of us really have good check-in questions. And so
Then you can talk.
that's what we're meeting. So I think if we put on next week, let's continue to clarify what the difference between the committee and how it relates to community outreach, because this was a tremendous community outreach just by sponsoring it. But it wasn't actually getting in the action of doing it, and that, so I don't know, does anybody else have anything to?
Just a quick clarifying question. So on this exercise for the B notes, what is our conclusion action items?
The action
What are
item,
our action items from this? I have Bill is creating a list of questions, but what action are we taking from this discussion?
to continue to clarify
Okay.
what is the committee's mandate.
Okay.
And maybe we all should read the ordinance. I was looking for it, I didn't find it, but that's because I was slow.
It's set up.
Maybe we could reread the ordinance and then define with greater clarity how we relate to the organizations in the community that are promoting sustainability. Does that get it?
Perfect. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay,
Can I just make a plug for my fellow city workers that work in the library that will be done by 8:30?
basically we'll be done. Okay, we're gonna be done by 8:30. Oh my gosh, we got 22 minutes. No wheels on this chair. All right, so, we've done the exercise. And, where do we want to go next? I think the goals was kind of what we're gonna get into. We could say we'll continue to work on those next week.
Next month.
Next month.
I thought we started, we're gonna meet every week now.
Daily,
We've got so much to do, and it's so much fun. Okay. Excellent, okay. Anybody want to go,
I'd like to suggest doing the places to live next meeting because my energy level is low and also because I think it would fit well after continuing the discussion that we started on goals to look at that and say, well, here's a major initiative. Is there a sustainability fit? Was there a sustainability fit going into it? Is that something to look at alongside other things? Is that a priority alongside other potential priorities? So it's a good fit for after this starts to firm up a bit.
Right, so Chad, we can put that on for next week,
Month.
month. So, this one is where we live, number 7. Want to do an update on the plastics?
Yeah, probably should. And Peter and Kristen can feel free to jump in, because you guys are holding on this meeting too. So the whole reason we had this meeting a week early was we were hoping to have a final draft review that was already reviewed by legal. Sent along to city council for the single-use plastics ordinance that Councilor Cook sent to us. And after reviewing with health planning and the legal departments, it really came down to that there's a lot of things in there that need tweaking, some things that can't necessarily be enforced quite yet. So we'll have to go back and look at what we can change in city articles to be able to enforce things with plastics. And the idea really is that we came out of it all in very high support of banning single-use plastics enforcement, and we can't do that statewide quite yet because New Hampshire doesn't allow that. So the goal is to really try and tweak it to have as much impact as the ordinance can right now without being able to fully ban plastics. And so legal and health are looking into that probably in the next few months. They're gonna try to get that back together. And our main mission right now is really just to keep doing the education and outreach for skip stuff and help support businesses and restaurants around town if we can, where they want us, with Christina's program. And I know Health is committed to a lot of outreach with restaurants that they're going to for their inspections, so really just ramping that up for now and seeing how much voluntary sign up we can get. Yeah, Jeff.
This is sort of opening a can of worms. I understand that one of our challenges has always been the state doesn't have enabling legislation. But now that the state is setting significant goals about waste reduction and those things, isn't there like, feel like there might be an opportunity that we can sort of reapproach some of this stuff, and that is the enabling legislation might be there, but the state goals are to reduce waste, and this is clearly a public to reduce waste. I don't know what legal thinks about that. I'm not an attorney, but I just keep coming back to that myself, is how do we start initiating some of these initiatives as a community more broadly. Just
I think,
putting it out
I
there.
think it's a good point that the state has these goals, but the legal department, I think, is going to say that there has to be a law that the legislators have passed that says you can do it. But I think what they're looking at is what can we get away with, under some version of the law. And I think, that's a good point to bring up to them is, the state has these goals, these climate action goals that include maybe getting rid of plastic or getting rid of waste. So could we use that as sort of a backup for our maybe stretch of an approach that might not quite be the letter of the law in terms of enabling legislation. So, I think legal tries to be creative with interpretation of state law, but the legislators, maybe the state put that climate action plan in, and really they did it because they wanted federal money. That was their motivation. Unfortunately, it was the only motivation probably. And so the legislators aren't there saying, what else can we do for climate action? They're just legislators. So, but I think it's a good point, and we'll bring it up with them. How much can we use the fact that they did this, climate action plan for the state, and it says all these great goals for waste. Why can't we do it? Because I don't know if what happens if we put something into effect that isn't allowed. The reality is someone will have to sue us to make it, test it. So where's the risk there, I guess? And it's probably a retailer or a company, a business that doesn't want to have to do it.
I'm gonna move it a little long. We got an email from Steve. That he really, put in several years, and his life is coming to the point where he felt he couldn't be here any longer to really do justice to the committee. And so, if you haven't signed this, this says, sustainability repurpose ornament. This is a 1995, Chamber of Commerce ornament. And so I have several of them. So if you would be willing to sign it, and Peter, you see him around town or kid?
We can get it to them.
Yeah, so let's pass around if you haven't signed it. All right, so anything else on plastic? All right, I think then that kind of takes care of it. Then we do,
Quick question on plastic. So one of the action items that we have is to figure out how we want to engage when topics like that come up, or someone comes in and is speaking, how do we want to support? Because that's something that I'm still unclear on, is that, do we say one person in the community breaks out and it's like, they're their advocate, they're there to help them with anything that they need? Or do we say someone just comes in and speaks? Do we say it's not open? That's what I'm still unclear on, is how engaged can we be with all the change makers out there? And on the Bark Mulch side, and Safety's Plastic, I'm just unsure of how we get engaged with them.
Can I just enter,
Yeah.
that particular issue was, meant that it was sent to us by city council. Because she presented it to them, so we were advisory with Blue Bow and the health department. So
Right.
but I appreciate your
Yeah.
point, and I agree completely, but
Yeah,
on the skip the stuff one, that was something else.
yes.
and if you put on the agenda, the sustainability committee handbook. And I don't know what that means to me is, as we are forming our basic ways we operate, one of the questions is, how do we deal with public input? And I have some ideas that we might want to discuss on that. And also, we want to say, to formalize, this, sheet about, facilitation and notes, and get that all into the handbook, so, yeah.
I got a couple items I just need to bring out real quick. One, you sent me an email to actually speak to the school board and speak to the superintendent of schools about the infrastructure related to solar canopies
Yeah,
in the parking. We would be happy to come to, this goes to the discussion, we'd be happy to come and speak and talk to the group here. If you'd like to do that, or if there's some other way you'd like to handle that, I'm happy to facilitate that. So that's one question.
and who were you talking?
To Zach,
Oh, you talked this out. Okay,
yeah,
right.
so if he's willing to come to have a conversation with the group about that, if you'd like to have that occur. So I'll stop with that one and let you answer, or do you want me to keep going?
Any thoughts?
City entity.
Are they,
Really?
is it being included, or any part of it being included
Right
in
now,
that?
it was not,
Yeah,
actually not being included in the current plan, but that plan is kind of falling apart in terms of funding and timing, and so it's a good time to probably bring that conversation to this group.
Well, just because you know what we're about, what would you think, is coming here? Would that be helping him or us or both? Well,
It would be helping both of us, to be honest, right? We're here to advise and guide and probably have recommendations, so on how we could approach that and include that in the bid and pricing that maintenance out there trying to get.
I'm trying to think about our next meeting and timing. Yeah, I hate to have this time come if we don't.
We're not prepared to do that, that's okay.
Well, I'm trying to think, what is anybody else? I think the part is the parking lot a leverage point, it's high visibility, it has students. It would be a project that I wouldn't think as much electricity, it will be good, but it would be more a statement for the community and students for driving in to a solar. I don't know, that's the kind of thing I think we could discuss. And
But I think also, if there's no funding for the solar panels, but you're actually gonna pave the parking lot and you don't put in the infrastructure, even if you don't put in those panels, you're kind of, excuse the expression, posing yourself for a period of time until that next round of pay, I need to go pay this parking lot comes about.
It's probably, I think IRA would. I don't remember, it might actually pay for at least a third of the infrastructure. So if you put the infrastructure in, just like if you put the infrastructure in bridge lot, if you did it now. I mean, we could get money back, direct pay, just for putting that in for future charging.
And maybe that's a discussion that needs to happen. If there's just having have a conversation.
I would say let's, from just expertise that comes up here, just having the discussion, I would say let's go for it. I would. Anybody, everybody can make a fist.
Question,
Yeah, sure.
the gentleman, I was probably trying to get my name on that little circle. I didn't hear who the gentleman was.
It's Zach McLaughlin, he's the actually superintendent of schools.
Oh, okay, great.
Yes, thanks.
I sent him an email about this with a whole bunch, I think I forwarded it to you. I sent him an email a while ago on this, and he and the assistant superintendent didn't even bother to respond to me.
All right, so
And that's what the-
for Zach, well, we had a person of conjecture. To have him come, by the way, their school has huge solar panel already, they have experience. So they could, all right, have him come, neutral, no, ready, 1, 2, 3, show. Okay, looks like, yeah, if he can come,
Maybe you could be clear on what he's coming for, like, let's not waste his time.
No, and I think we can, I'll either work with you or whoever I can work with in order to put that, start working on an agenda with him. In terms of coming to that next meeting, then let's do that together as a small group, is that okay?
Yeah,
Is that against?
yeah, as long as it's just clear on.
No, I don't think
That's
it's,
okay.
I think it's,
Okay.
it's the committee's choice, and, I think it's really up to Zach, if the committee thinks it would be productive, and Zach is willing to spend the time, at least talk to the committee about where they're at on that.
it's educated, he's coming to educate us because he has experience. And maybe you could say that I don't think they have a parking lot. Can't be, I think it's just, no, so we might see if they explore that, and they might say bad idea, so, okay.
Can I work with you on that?
Sure.
So my other, so my other ask is that in terms of the school board wants me to report back to them, like I said, in these committees, within the next period of us having a school board meeting. That means I need to have draft notes, or like meeting notes, to be able to report back to the school board. They don't care whether they're accepted or approved, they just need to be able to report back to them. Is that something that we could change policy on, because I actually didn't report back?
I don't think you should take the draft minutes, I think you should take your own notes back to them. Because I think sending the draft minutes out before they're approved by the committee is not good practice. So if you want to bring notes back then and say what the committee talked about, I think that's fine. If you want to look through the draft minutes, I guess, and pull from that, but I guess I'm nervous about sending out draft minutes to an official body that becomes public record before they're approved is not good practice. So I'm a little worried about that. So I don't have a problem, anybody can come and say what they heard at the meeting from their own perspective.
So let me rephrase what the committee has asked for, which is for me to actually summarize those.
Yeah,
So,
so if you summarize what happened at the meeting or the key points, I think that's
but
fine.
I'm a brain donor and I need to actually have those notes to be able to summarize, because I don't remember everything from yesterday or even half a day ago.
So you
Yeah.
would
Is that,
you
is
would
that
take
possible?
the draft minutes and
Yeah.
make your notes.
Make your
And
notes.
summarize from that,
Okay, I guess that's fine.
if that's okay.
I don't know if we covered community engagement.
No, that, oh, I was, it's not circled, that's right.
Right, so I just wanted to remind everybody, April 14th, because it's before our next meeting, is the sustainability fair, and Jessica has done a great job. Lots of people coming, lots of organizations, lots of businesses this year, food, some kind of music, leftist marching band. So,
They kicking it off.
yeah, from Market Square.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
We've asked the mayor to speak, we haven't heard back from him, there'll be free food, free drinks. I just counted, I think we have 33 official guests.
Oh, yeah, the eco club might be marching with the leftist marching band. Did you hear about that?
Yeah.
And you don't have to give screening questions to all.
You can tell the school board about the Eagle Fair, that would be good.
Absolutely.
I don't know if there's other things.
And, I'm assuming that the sustainability committee would like to have a table, and I don't think we have any official volunteers. I know several of you are here, will be there in other capacities, so maybe it's not necessary to have a table specific for sustainability committee, or if any of you are interested in, it's 12 to 3. Okay, there we go.
Good, and there'll be several of us there, so that for part of the time.
Yeah, you know, we won't have this.
That's Sunday, April 14th, right? Okay,
Yep,
And then
the event's from 12 to 3.
awesome.
And the
Thank you.
reason it's not Earth Day is because that's school vacation.
Yep.
right?
That we face those same.
Yeah.
Great. Anything else? Did we cover it?
Yeah.
Thank you, Leslie, for that. I think I didn't do the close yet. We have 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
3 minutes we can do. What's your last thought or takeaway? Say your name again so everybody can get names. And we'll go starting there. Last thought or takeaway.
I'm Jillian, and my biggest takeaway from today is how interesting it was to look at the report, what was it? The ordinance that we had and compare it to the Chat GPT list. And it's, I think it's amazing that you're using this resource in this way. I think it's a really good way to expand kind of what we do at Eagle Club and kind of be able to like use some of our other resources, so.
I was hoping we were gonna make some more progress on goals, but maybe next month.
Thanks, Skip. Yeah, good meeting, thanks for. And it's fun reading in this room.
Chad, my name's Chaz,
Oh.
and,
I'm Effie. Sorry, forgot.
and I love doing different types of design thinking activities. That's actually what I wrote my master's thesis on, sustainability and design thinking. And so I love when we get up and see from different perspectives and play a little bit, and we're a lot more creative when we play.
I'm super excited about this solar canopy idea and bringing this back to the Eco Club. I think it's like one of the first times I've seen a real connection from this meeting and bringing it back to the Eco Club. And I've jotted down a bunch of notes on how to get the entire club involved. So I'm excited to go back and get everyone.
I'm Jess, and now I'm thinking about the sustainability fair again.
I'm, are you done? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm done.
So I'm Lee, and I am excited about actually the solar canopy as well. I was just out in San Diego on a business trip and spent the weekend with family out there. And went to several, actually schools to do, some family stuff with sports and sports engagements for my cousin's kids. And every school had solar canopies, every school had solar canopies. which is awesome. So it's pretty cool that we're gonna do that here, but we're behind.
I'm Emma, and also the solar kids are very exciting to me. And also thanks Bert for setting up these exercises.
Yeah, that's my takeaway, Bert. I knew that Bert had an exercise. That's great. And you came through there. 3 Ws. And a historical reference to movies.
And I'll add 1K for kudos to Bert. I thought that was a very, very productive and engaged discussion. I think very helpful for us progressing toward a solid focus consistent with the ordinance and I think focused in goals.
Kate, I had very similar takeaway, really enjoyed the exercise like Chad was saying. And I also really like that we kind of broke up the norm by coming here and just decided to talk about one topic for the whole night. It felt really good, different, exciting.
I will say that, when I was in art school and I was doing paintings and drawings, I knew that I was kind of feeding all the time to go to my unconscious. And then it would come out in something that blew me away, I don't know. And so I think where the committee has been deeply, I'm thinking so much about the trouble in the world, so much stress in my life and in the social life. And yet to take it on in and have a vehicle come and try to do, and not only try, but actually have a vehicle to work to make it better is a gift. And I appreciate everybody doing the work together tonight. Thank you. And we'll be out by 8:30 almost.
Oh, we're late. It's like-
So, Hunter.
Okay, we have to put stuff away.
So. Is it?
What do we have to do? Do we have to put chairs in?
Yeah, I think check way and then the round table goes underneath two.
Okay.
Then the tables would get put together in a square.
All right.
Okay, how do I stop recording?
Or is this? Wait, one of the- I just want to check in. Oh, I know the computer don't work. Oh, I think that's just. Yeah. Sure.